Hello everyone and welcome to another video where today we're going to be talking about Gravitee and placing Gravitee in front of your Azure Event Hub to expose to your consumers. So Azure Event Hubs is a fully managed real-time data ingestion service that's super simple, trusted, and scalable. You can stream millions of events per second from any source to build dynamic data pipelines and immediately respond to business challenges. The flow that we're going to be going over today is taking your Azure Event Hub topic and placing the Gravitee gateway in between that and then exposing that data stream to your consumers over some web-friendly protocols. So what you're seeing on the screen here is, of course, our backend connector. Now we can expose numerous different connectors. In this case, we're going to be exposing your Azure Event Hub topic through a Kafka endpoint. And then by placing Gravitee in between your topic and your consumers, we're going to be transitioning that data into either REST over HTTP and subscribing to that event topic through a WebSocket connection. Now, to make this a bit more sophisticated, we're also going to be pushing or publishing events to your Event Hub topic on the back end, also through a REST interface. Now, this is what we call protocol mediation in Gravitee, and we're going to simply set this up in the next few minutes. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump directly into the platform. So what we would need to set up on your Azure Event Hub side is, of course, an Event Hub namespace. And within that namespace, of course, we need our topic. Now, our topic is going to have that Kafka surface enabled, and this will allow us to expose that topic through a Kafka endpoint, and then we can go ahead and connect everything to Gravitee. The final piece before we jump into the Gravitee platform is creating a shared access policy, and this is going to allow an external connection to your Event Hub topic. The reason that I have the Apache Kafka with Microsoft documentation up here is because the connection string, whereas we know it as the Jazz config specifically, is going to follow a specific protocol. It'll start with this connection string here, and then for what we are manipulating on our side is going to follow the password field here parameter. So everything is going to follow this exact same connection string that we're going to pass to Gravitee to connect to your Event Hub topic. You'll keep this $ connection string variable, letting Gravitee know that we're using the connection string as the username here, and then the password is going to be the actual primary key or the connection string that your Event Hub topic provides to you. And so we're only going to populate this piece here, and I'll show you exactly what that looks like in Gravitee. So without further ado, let's go ahead and pop into the Gravitee platform. Now, within my APIs on the high-level navigation, I'm going to find or create a new Azure Event Hub API. Now, you can name this whatever you would like, and the most important thing that you do when you create the API is creating the API. You can give it any name that you would like. We can call this test for now, give it just a version of 1. Is you're going to want to select the second option here, which is going to allow us to connect to an event-driven backend. Now, once we do that, you're going to select any of these different entry points. This is how your consumer is going to connect to the Gravitee gateway in order to then connect to your Azure Event Hub topic. And so you can expose that connection through a REST interface. You can also expose it through a variety of different entry points like server-sent events, like a webhook, or through a persistent connection like a WebSocket. Now let me show you exactly what these settings look like on my side so that you know exactly how to set up your API from scratch. So if I go to my API here, I've got my Event Hub demo. You can see that under entry points, I've selected all of the interfaces, albeit for the server-sent events. So I have a GET and a POST with REST over HTTP. I also have a webhook and a WebSocket entry point connection as well. And once you've selected those, there's no other settings that you need to configure other than going into your endpoints. And this is how we set up Gravitee to speak to your Event Hub Kafka endpoint. And so once you get to the endpoint screen, you're going to pass in your Bootstrap server, and this is taken directly from the Microsoft documentation, and the Bootstrap server is going to follow a very consistent naming convention where you pass in your namespace and then also follow that by the rest of the host name here and the port for your Event Hub topic, which is going to be 9093. The second thing that we see here is that the security protocol connecting the gateway to your Event Hub topic is going to be through SASL SSL, and the mechanism is going to be plain. And so in Gravitee, if I go into my configuration here, we've selected that this API is going to be both a consumer and a producer. In your case, you might want a separate API for a consumer and a separate API to produce messages, and that is totally fine. It's going to follow the exact same conventions that we configure here. So in line with the documentation, we have our protocol set to SASL SSL, and our mechanism is plain, exactly like we're following in the documentation. And for the Jazz config, or the connection string here, we're passing in the connection string that Azure wants us to use here, and we're simply populating our Event Hub connection string in the password parameter within this connection string. So you can see that my connection string is here, and you might be asking, where did you find this? Well, if I go directly into my Azure portal and I go to my shared access policy and I opened up my single policy here, we're going to copy the primary key for our connection string. And this value here is going to be what is driving this password parameter in our connection string. So we are going to literally paste that directly in between the quotes, and then that is all we have to do from a security configuration standpoint. Now, if we scroll down to the very bottom here, the last bit of information that we have to provide Gravitee is which topic we are going to both subscribe and consume to. In this case, I have a topic in my Event Hub namespace called Faraz Test Event Hub. And this is going to make sure that I go and publish directly to my Event Hub topic following this naming convention. So to go into my Data Explorer here, we obviously have our Event Hub topic here. We can go ahead and view and send events using the UI. But the benefit of using Gravitee here is that we want to do this from the Gravitee gateway. We want to lock down our Event Hub topic in Azure. And we ultimately do not want to touch Azure for any of our data manipulation, both our subscribing and our publishing. And so we're going to do all of that in the demo that I'm going to show you now. So if I bring in my Postman, what I have here is a few different examples. Number one, I'm going to produce a message and then consume it through a REST interface on both ends. And then secondly, to end things off, I'm also going to consume messages and subscribe to my Event Hub topic through a WebSocket connection. So in order to do this, we're going to first pass in our gateway ingress, or the URL depicting our Gravitee gateway. And then we're going to pass in whatever the value is for our entry point into this API in Gravitee. So the API that you created here, if you navigate into entry points, you're going to have a context path, and this is going to be the listen path for your API. Now we're going to copy this and put that directly into Postman. And I don't want you to be alarmed. The reason that this has a dash demo and this does not is simply due to the fact that the scrubbed information is going to be included in this API, but the configuration settings are going to be all the exact same. Now, once I modify this payload to reflect our current date, which is December 18th, 2024, we can increment this ID of 2 to make sure that we have a unique message, and then we can go ahead and fire off this message. And so we return to 202, letting us know that the gateway accepted this post request, and then we can go into our Azure Event Hub topic and view our events. And so once this loads, we're going to see a message that says Gravitee says hello from ID 2, and this is also reflecting today's current date. Now, because we set up both a consumer and a producer in our API, we're going to use the exact same API in Gravitee to also consume the messages that we are sending. So to go ahead and do that, I'm going to open up my Postman here, and I'm going to increment this to the 19th, as well as an ID of 3. And I'm going to post this message and then also go into my REST API and fire off the same request, this time making a GET request to the same gateway and the same API listen path. And so once this loads, we're going to see both of our messages. So the first message that we sent previously is December 18th with ID of 2. And then clearly we traveled into the future here one day, incremented the ID to 3, and we're getting that message as well. Now the second entry point or second way of connecting to our Event Hub topic through Gravitee is through a WebSocket connection. And so what I want to do now is I want to go into my WebSocket server that I've spun up locally in Postman. And I'm connecting to, again, the same gateway to the same API, and I'm going to spin up this WebSocket connection. And now going into my producer API, I can go ahead and increment this again to ID of 4. And this time, let's go ahead and hit this to December 20th. And I want to be fun here just because it's the holiday season and fire this date off to 2050. Why not? Now, if we fire this off, we're going to go back into our Event Hub subscriber WebSocket connection. And within this persistent connection, we can see that the message was received. If we remove the binary here and view the raw message that we sent in, we can see that Gravitee says hello, ID of 4, and welcome from the future. Now, just to confirm everything is working correctly in my actual upstream or my source, if I refresh this page here and make sure that our message was received at our source from the year 2050. So that is all you need to make sure that you connect the Gravitee gateway to do what we call protocol mediation between Gravitee and your direct upstream, which is in this case living in Azure Event Hub. And that is all for today. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to reach out to myself or go ahead and comment it in the video below and I can go ahead and respond. Thanks so much, and I'll see you in the next video.